What if Ned Stark convinced Jon Snow not to join the Night's Watch? Let's explore its depths in the video. If this video gets 3,000 likes, we'll make a part 2.
There's great honor serving in the Night's Watch. The Starks have manned the wall for thousands of years. And you are a Stark. You might not have my name. You have my blood.
Ned Stark looks at Jon Snow, wondering if this truly will be the last time they will see each other. Benjen said that Jon was most insistent on joining, even begging for the honor. But Lord Stark knows it is different to say that now than once he is on the wall, and he cannot truly let Jon go without telling him.
But are you truly certain this is something you want? It's a lonely path on the wall. Winterfell will always be your home. All due respect, Father. It doesn't seem like my home without you. But there on the wall, it is a place where I may rise and win respect. It is not the only place you may win respect. But if you're worried about me, I wouldn't mind having you by my side in the capital. Really? But be warned, Jon. The capital isn't Winterfell. It is a harsh place, and from what I've heard, it's only gotten harsher. A bastard might not be well received there, even one from a high lord. A few harsh words don't bother me, Father. If a few harsh words were all I was concerned with, I would have asked you to join me far sooner. There are dangers there even I fear to face. Rumors and plots aplenty. So, I'm asking you now, if you go with me, there may be a time that I will not be able to protect you or your sister. If that happens, do you promise to keep them safe? I do. Good.
Ned soon sends to his brother that Jon will not accompany them. Although a bit disappointed to return to the wall alone, Benjen is relieved to hear this and wishes them both well. However, the journey south soon runs into trouble when Nymeria bites Joffrey's hand and forces Ned to execute a direwolf. With Nymeria gone, Cersei orders that Sansa's wolf be killed instead. They nearly do the same for Ghost, but Jon protests.
A bastard should know his place and how to address the Queen.
And the Queen should know that this direwolf is here to protect my father. Would you have the hand stripped of that?
That thing is not protection. It's a beast. It bit my son.
That beast you're referring to is not among us. Surely you can tell the difference between white and grey. Ghost had nothing to do with this.
Cersei reddens in anger, but Robert laughs.
The boy has you there, wife. This wolf has no part in this incident. You'll get your fur coat, so be grateful you get that much. As for you, boy, I suggest you keep that wolf far away from my wife, if you value its life. It will be done, Your Grace.
While Ghost is spared execution, Lady is not so fortunate and is put down by Ned. Thankfully, they reach the capital with no further problems. His father immediately is thrust into the position of Hand, being briefed on the realm's state of affairs and preparing the Hand's tourney. Meanwhile, Arya and Sansa continue their lessons in the capital. This leaves Jon Snow alone. Taking his father's word to heart, he spends most of his time with Jory and the other Stark guardsmen. The incident on the Ruby Road only further motivates him, as he sees just how dangerous the Lannisters are. Jory notes his growing skill and urges him to train with the other knights. He reminds him that many knights are arriving in King's Landing, and he will be able to test his skills. Among these knights are soldiers brought by Stannis, who makes a surprise return. According to him, he is simply there to witness the Hand's tournament. Those who know Stannis, though, immediately know this is a lie. Stannis and Ned immediately form an unofficial alliance, as they agree with most things and generally work together well. Seeing his father's cooperation with Stannis, Jon feels more comfortable with them. The training yard in the Red Keep stands empty as night begins to set, but Jon Snow continues to train, his sword moving in fluid arcs. His only company is Ghost, until footsteps ring out behind him.
Not bad for a young wolf.
Sir Davos Seaworth holds a training sword in his hand and nods a greeting. At first, Ghost growls at him, but quickly relaxes when Davos whistles and holds his hand out. To Jon's surprise, the direwolf pads over and licks his maimed hand.
Do you want to spar, Sir Davos?
I'm afraid I'd be poor competition. You'd be better off with that straw dummy. But don't hold back on my account. Jon strikes first, testing Davos with quick, calculated blows. It's clear Davos isn't downplaying as he struggles to hold him back.
I would have thought a pirate would make a better swordsman.
I was never a pirate. I was a smuggler.
And the difference is?
Pirates live to rush at ships and cause havoc. Smugglers tend to run away from them. If you're a good smuggler, you would never need to cross swords with anyone. Davos deflects his next swings, but offers little in way of counterattacks. For a time, it seems Jon has the advantage, his youth and strength pushing Davos onto the back foot. His maimed hand also makes it difficult for him to hold his sword, constantly adjusting his grip. Jon senses this weakness and presses forward. Davos then shifts his weight, using his smaller frame to dart in close. Before Jon can react, Davos hooks a boot behind his leg and sweeps him to the ground.
Yeah, that wasn't fair.
You expected a smuggler to play fair? Boy, fair doesn't matter when you're fighting for your life. It's not about cracking swords or playing knight. It's about winning. You think the men who fight for crowns and coins care about honor?
My father does.
Aye, your father is a strange bird. Begging your pardon.
No wonder he and Lord Stannis get along so well.
But these trainers will teach you how to swing a sword properly. Aye, but they won't teach you what matters. Hedge knights, sellswords, they've seen the worst of it.
You speak as though you've seen it all.
Seen enough to know that lowborn like us, we're not meant to play by their rules. We're not meant to win these games. I've spent my life keeping my head attached and my lord alive. That's what matters. You do the same for Ned Stark.
I would. Would you do the same for Lord Stannis?
I have, and I would again. You're loyal to a fault, boy. That's rare in places like this. I'd advise you to leave this place before it chews you up and spits you out. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem like an option for men like us. The two men share a long look before beginning to laugh. Davos smiles and claps Jon on the back. He gives Ghost a scratch behind the ears before heading out. Soon after, the day of the tourney arrives, and Jon Snow is among those who participate in the melee. Using the skills he's learned from Sir Davos and the Hedge Knights, he manages to defeat and disarm over a dozen opponents before being knocked out. One person who catches his eye isn't a knight, it's a woman. Melisandre approaches Jon as he's recovering from the melee. She reaches out and helps tend to his wounds. Jon is surprised and more than a bit flustered to feel her touch, but allows her to tend to him, wrapping his bandages around his arm. She follows by inviting him to her quarters to talk. Jon Snow agrees, and when he arrives, he's surprised to find Stannis there waiting for them. Expecting another sort of meeting, were you?
Lord Stannis,
Calm yourself. I won't be telling your father. I've come to speak with you. Though, the eyes in this damned castle prevent me from reaching out openly. I won't mince words. I think you've seen the corruption in this place as much as I.
I know little of the games of court, but I know much of men, and the court seems airheaded.
A polite way of saying foolish. Call them what they are. Flatterers and fools, all of them. Tell me, what do you think of the Crown Prince? Golden-haired Joffrey.
I can't believe my father would let him near Sansa after what he did.
Your anger is misdirected. It's my brother who wishes that match. The corruption starts in his bed.
I don't understand.
Stannis doesn't say anything, but glances around as Melisandre nods her head. Your father and I have been investigating something that affects the royal family and could change everything. Unfortunately, many parties in the court would rather keep this secret we're about to uncover buried.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I fear that soon this court, maybe the entire 7 kingdoms, may become a battleground. Your father may believe he will protect you by sending you north, but it will not pass.
I have seen it in the flames, Lord Snow. There is a war coming. A war like no other. The Great War. The last war. You shall have your part to play. When this war comes, not even the North shall be safe unless you take action.
Jon can hardly believe the words they are saying. Stannis admits that it is much to take in and allows him to go, letting him sleep on it. In the meantime, he and Ned continue their investigation. With Stannis there, he corroborates everything Jon Arryn confided in him. Together they begin looking through old records, meet with some of Robert's children, and try to make sense of the mess the king has left. But as they do, the situation only grows worse, as they soon get reports of Catelyn capturing Tyrion, leading Ned to be injured. Soon after, Ned concludes that Robert has no true-born children with Cersei, and all of them are bastards. He prepares to bring this report to Robert once he returns from hunting, but the situation only deteriorates. Raiders from the west, most likely Lannister soldiers, are mobilized and raid the Riverlands, while larger armies are being assembled. Jon Snow watches all of this and asks his father what is happening. While Ned does not go into specifics, he simply states that his worst fears have come to pass, and that he may have to send Jon and his sisters away. Jon Snow initially agrees, but then recalls the warning Melisandre gives, and suggests that he stay here and help him. Ned tries to turn him away, but Jon reminds Ned that he vowed to protect him too, and that once Arya and Sansa are safe, his place will be with him. Ned tries to dissuade him, but sees the defiant look on Jon's face and realizes there is no changing his mind. He agrees, but assures him it might not even come to that, as Robert should be returning soon, and he can explain everything. Though the king does come back, it is not the way Ned expects. When he returns, Robert is close to death, and expires not long after. However, he does name Ned a regent for Joffrey, and effectively makes him king. Unsurprisingly, these terms are not honored by Cersei.
Lord Eddard Stark is herein named Protector of the Realm, to rule as regent until the heir come of age.
May I see that letter, Sir Barristan? Protector of the Realm. Is this meant to be your shield, Lord Stark? A piece of paper.
Those were the king's words.
We have a new king now.
She demands that Ned swear fealty to Joffrey or risk death. The King's Guard reaches for their swords, and just as violence is about to erupt, Stannis steps forward, a dozen of his men joining him, adding their swords to Ned's fighters. All of Stannis' men are experienced knights, which, although still leaving them outnumbered, evens the odds.
I think not. The Queen Mother has deceived you. I am sure many of you have wondered about my absence these past few months. It was because I was privy to information left by the late Jon Arryn. He believes that Prince Joffrey and his siblings are not Robert's true-born children.
Lies. Slander. You are speaking to your king, uncle.
I'm speaking to a bastard born of incest, unfit to even polish the throne, much less sit on it. Now move aside, or I shall have you moved.
I want his head.
The King's Guard draw their swords, and the sound of steel being unsheathed fills the hall. Ned steps back to form a defensive line with his men. Stannis Baratheon raises his own blade, his knights quickly moving to his side. Though outnumbered, their disciplined stances exude calm determination.
Stand down. Any man who lifts his sword for this false king will answer to me.
The Hound charges forward, his blade aiming for Stannis, but before he can reach him, a figure in white intercepts. Sir Barristan Selmy.
I swore to protect the realm, not a lie.
The Lannister guards surge forward, and the throne room becomes a storm of bodies, blades, and blood. Ned hobbles out of reach as Stannis fights beside the Stark men. Outside the throne room, Jon Snow sprints through the chaos, his heart pounding. Servants scream and flee as guards clash in the corridors. Jon weaves through the carnage, his practiced sword clutched tightly. He knows his task: find his sisters. He reaches the living quarters first, throwing open door after door until he hears a familiar voice. Arya. She is darting through the halls, chased by 2 Lannister guards. Jon steps between them, his blade catching one of the guards in the side before he can react. The other turns, snarling, but Jon is quicker. his training taking over as he drives his sword into the man's chest. The first man tries to rise and attack, but Arya drives a needle into his side, allowing Jon to finish him off.
Stick them at the pointy end, right?
Jon manages a smile as he wipes tears from her eyes. He guides her away from the chaos, running through the halls, dodging skirmishes in the castle until they come upon Sansa. She's trembling, held by Sir Boros Blunt.
Stay back, bastard!
He shoves Sansa behind him and draws his sword. Jon says nothing, his jaw tightening as he steps forward, readying his sword. Boros charges, his heavy blade swinging in a wide arc. Jon ducks low, the tip of Boros' sword grazing his shoulder, but Jon counters with a quick thrust. Boros blocks it and twists to the side, shoving Jon back. Growling, Jon pushes forward with another burst of attacks. Surprised by the aggression, Sir Boros begins to give ground, but none of Jon's attacks manage to cause any damage due to his heavy plate. This gives the knight a chance to rally and sweeps his sword in a wide arc, forcing Jon to break off. As he prepares to strike, the bastard is faster, sidestepping his swing and slamming his shoulder into the knight's side. As he falls, Boros overextends with a heavy swing, and Jon seizes this chance. He ducks under the blade and drives his sword into Boros' exposed neck. The knight gurgles, his eyes wide with shock as he collapses. Jon stands over him, chest heaving, his practice sword slick with blood.
Sansa, Arya, come on.
As they reach the courtyard, they are surprised to find Sir Davos standing alongside a group of Baratheon and Stark men. The smuggler waves at them and calls them over.
Jon, you survived. Good. We're about to join your father.
Barristan cuts down the Hound with a graceful slash, while Stannis and his knights carve a path through the remaining Lannister forces. But in the chaos, Sir Mandon and Preston manage to rush out, the Queen in tow. Joffrey tries to follow, but is tripped by Ned Stark. As the last of the Lannister guard falls, the room goes silent, except for the labored breathing of the victors. Stannis strides toward the throne.
It's over. Yield, or face justice.
I yield. I yield.
The Baratheon and Stark forces quickly secure the castle. Unfortunately, there is no sign of Cersei or Tommen, as in the chaos, a group of Lannister men manage to escort them out. With the City Watch under their control, they are easily able to get through the city gates and rejoin their father in the Riverlands. But with this defeat, the capital is lost to the Lannisters. But while they might have captured King's Landing, holding it is another matter. Robert's will is read aloud across the city, while copies are made and sent to other castles and towns. Janos Slynt and Littlefinger are both arrested, the former confessing the latter's plan to bribe them during their imprisonment. Ned writes to Robb, urging him to strike south. By this point, Robb is already on the move and manages to score a victory against Jaime Lannister, capturing him and leaving Tywin on the back foot. However, Tywin has a clear line of retreat, as Ned and Stannis have virtually no troops in the city beyond the City Watch. While Stannis raises his vassals, Ned rides across the houses in the Crownlands, urging them to rally whoever they can. They manage to get the support from houses Rosby, Stokeworth, Riker, and Faring, along with a few houses. But this is nothing compared to Tywin's 20,000 soldiers. The only upside, Tywin is not prepared for a siege, so cannot take the city by storm until he builds siege weapons. With their defenses stretched, though, there isn't much the defenders can do. Every day a gate comes under attack, or the Lannister men launch scaling ladders to gain the wall, and every day they defend. While Ned has overall command, his wound prevents him from taking an active role in the battle. Instead, that falls onto Jon and Sir Barristan. Jon appears everywhere, rallying the troops and trying to provide relief where he can. He manages to beat back multiple assaults and remains accompanied by Sir Aerys and Barristan. When he's not with the knights, he's with Ghost, who lives up to his name, ripping through men and scaring off horses. Together, their efforts ensure the Lannisters never establish a permanent foothold. On some occasions, they even launch sorties and raids on the Lannister host. While these attacks are not big, they manage to disrupt their lines and keep them on their toes. Siege towers begin to rise after several days, and one of the hastily built platforms comes rumbling toward them. The crude structure takes the attention of most of the defenders. Even in its ramshackle state, it takes plenty of effort to destroy it. But this is a diversion, as while this is happening, Tywin orders another assault with scaling ladders by Gregor. The mountain soon gains a foothold, sweeping aside any opponent in his way. When Jon and Sir Barristan hear of this, they hurry to that portion of the wall and try to hold him back. When Jon and Barristan arrive, the mountain has already carved a foothold, his men surging up the ladders behind him. They waste no time and attack. Barristan is the first to reach the mountain and swings his sword at them. The old knight ducks under the attack and comes close, his sword flashing against a dozen points in his armor in the same number of breaths. As the mountain tries to shove him back, Jon runs to his side and strikes wherever there is an opening. He doesn't fully engage the mountain, letting Sir Barristan handle that. Sir Gregor roars and sweeps his sword around, but Sir Barristan moves with the grace of a man a third his age, dodging each blow and countering with precise and methodical attacks. While he cannot break through the large man's armor, he finds weak points and lands a few blows. One particular attack manages to drive his sword under the mountain's armpit, causing him to roar out in pain. Jon circles, waiting for his chance. He watches as Barristan ducks under a heavy swing and slashes at the mountain's thigh, drawing blood. Gregor roars, enraged, and retaliates with a brutal overhead strike. Barristan barely sidesteps, but the edge of the blow catches his shoulder, splitting his armor and drawing blood. Jon deflects the next strike aimed at the older knight. Jon's sword clashes with Gregor's, the impact jarring his arms and nearly sending him tumbling off. But his speed keeps him alive as he dodges the next attack. The wounds Sir Barristan gives him slow Gregor down, leaving him struggling to swing.
Strike low!
Jon grits his teeth, feigning high before diving into a slash at the mountain's injured leg. The blow lands and Gregor staggers, roaring in pain. Barristan, despite his injury, lunges forward, driving his sword into the mountain's side. Gregor swats at him like an insect, sending Barristan sprawling, but the wound is deep. The mountain falters, his movements slowing further. Now it's Jon's turn. He steps in, dodging the clumsy blows as he drives his sword upward, pushing it at his unprotected side and sending him tumbling to the ground. While he struggles, Jon frees a dirk and drives it between Sir Gregor's helmet slits. Breathing hard, Jon looks to Barristan, who nods in approval, despite the blood running down his side.
Well fought, Snow.
But that isn't the only foe, as Gregor's men surge forward. Jon lays the old knight behind him and defends him against several attackers until Sir Eris arrives. Suddenly, a horn blares from the distance, a new sound, sharp and triumphant. He looks up to see banners cresting the hill behind the Lannister lines, stags on golden fields. The new force crashes into Tywin's rear lines, throwing the Lannister army into chaos. The defenders on the walls cheer as the Lannister soldiers begin to waver.
Now's our chance. We must lead the Sortier. Break them while they're reeling. No, you've done your duty. Sir Eris, protect your Lord Commander. I'll lead the Sortier.
Jon hurries down and mounts a horse. He picks up the King's banner in one hand and waves it around, signaling the defenders to charge. Ghost by his side, knocking the first rider clean off his horse as Jon's troop meet Tywin's. The clash is brutal but short. Stannis' cavalry crushes Tywin's reserves, and despite being outnumbered, the shock sends them running. Soon the Lannisters are in full retreat, but Jon fights fiercely, cutting down stragglers. When the dust settles, the battlefield is littered with the dead, and the Red Keep still stands. Jon stands amid the carnage and finds Stannis there. He explains how after he gathered his levies on Dragonstone, he saw King's Landing was already under siege, so instead he gathered his troops to Duskendale and rode hard to take Tywin at the rear. However, it was Jon's quick reaction that allowed them to capitalize on the attack. Now the remnants of Tywin's host are being pursued by Roose Bolton's army. Jon gets praise from the two Kingsguard and Stannis when they return to the Red Keep. His sister excitedly embraces him when they see him safe. But this leaves the question of who shall rule.
If what Jon Arryn says is true, then by all rights I should be king.
Not all. There is another matter to consider. The final son of the Silver Prince.
Aegon, the boy is dead.
No, not his children by Ilya. He had one more son, with my sister. A boy I've sheltered for the last 15 years. Jon Snow, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna.
You expect me to believe this claim? To pass up my right? What evidence do you have?
Howland Reed bore witness to all that happened, but I admit I have no proof beyond what I saw. Yet you know me as an honorable man. I would not make up this claim.
My lord, I have seen this vision in my fire. It was not clear before, but I see it now. It is he who shall face the great other.
You once made the same claim for me.
I see you as well, your grace. You are standing by him, commanding his armies. But he is Azor Ahai, the last son of Rhaegar Targaryen.
The words send the room into silence, as everyone can only look at Jon Snow in surprise. And then, slowly, Ned eases himself to one knee. With their lord on their knees, the Stark men follow. Sir Barristan and Aerys look at one another and drop down as well. Lastly, Stannis gives a cool nod and kneels as well.
Then you have a difficult path, King Snow. I do not envy your position.
The rest of the Lannisters are soon mopped up, leaving Cersei, Tywin, and Jaime all in chains. Robb and his forces soon arrive to greet the new king, and are stunned to see Jon atop the Iron Throne. Rather than kneel, Robb embraces his brother and declares himself proud to serve. The rest of the Northmen and Rivermen all follow suit. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.